Virgin
Beauty.
Bitch podcast. Inspiring women to overcome social stereotypes and share unique life experiences without fear of being defiantly different. Your hosts, Christopher and Heather. Let's talk, shall we?
When is bitch not a curse, but a cure? Well, it's whenever hate or fear of the word no longer guides your definition, and you choose to see the possibility that BITCH can spell out a path to your growth and empowerment. How is that even possible? Well, that's the premise of our conversations with licensed mental health counselor and holistic coach for body, mind, and soul, Alisa Gracheva. Welcome back, Lisa, to Virgin Beauty Bitch.
Thank you so much. It's an honor again. I'm so thrilled to see both of you. It's been a pleasure the first time, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to go into this time around. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for jumping in with us. Now, Alisa, with all the traditional modalities you use, like Reiki and meditation, alternative healing processes like sacred plant medicine, sound healing therapy, to cutting-edge psychotherapies like EMDR, CBT, and logotherapy, the idea of taking a word used historically to dehumanize women as a tool for women's personal liberation must sound crazy. But even after explaining our premise of the 5 stages to BITCH, betrayal, identity, trust, change, and healing, you agreed to explore the concept with us. We're thrilled to have your perspective on the impact of these universal experiences, beginning with betrayal. And I'm curious, with all that you have experienced, what does that word betrayal bring up for you?
I would say it's disappointment in certain ways because I believe we all crave that connection and we crave to be finding a sense of belonging in people that we meet, right? And when we experience something like betrayal, it can hurt us deeply and leave a lot of wounds in how we see the world afterwards. So I think disappointment in people, and the more we go through that, especially if it's the repeated story, it becomes deeper and deeper wound. And unfortunately, oftentimes people stop themselves from even going further to explore that. And that's a deeply traumatic experience because they've learned you can't trust anybody, but yet this is so essential for our growth and development. So it becomes like a trap. So I think betrayal ultimately leads to a lot of disappointment and possibly being trapped by our own conditioning and not being able to move forward with the growth, with the healing process when it comes to us and the community and those people who are close to us in a way.
I'm glad you put it in that context. If I take that egg that you've given me and I expanded it out to all of womanhood and betrayal, how would you see it the same way? Or how do you define that as a woman and your sisters around the world?
Yeah, I think people, women this time around, tolerate a lot of things. And often concepts that we see is that women have to go through a lot of those things. Even when we get into romantic relationships, we all know, yes, you can get to a stage where everyone will live like kind of with the same values and get already shaped by the life together. But in a lot of couples and a lot of women that I see that I work with, even the relationships they have now that were deeply fulfilling or beautiful or long-standing, there's still betrayal involved in going through stages and developing that relationship further. So on one hand, I can say probably betrayal is inevitable for a lot of us to experience, even with the relationships we already have. But at the same time, it can either heal us or kill us, right? We can go through, and if that betrayal serves as a lesson for another person, if they betrayed, let's say, a woman, a partner, if they've learned through that and they begin to change, that can really strengthen the bond. And you may not 100% recover the trust that was there previously, but I think it can still make the relationship much stronger moving on, especially if both people are now on the same side and trying to work on that very hard. But not a lot of people are willing to put up with the work right now, right? This is the society where if you're not good for me, well, I'm moving to the next. And before, I think, like you said about historically, I think before we found more solace and more fulfillment in relationships that we had, because we couldn't choose a lot of times the professions we would have if we were born into a certain class. Let's say if your parents were housekeepers or something that's blue collar, right, professions, it's going to be harder to get out there and to be a CEO of a company or to achieve certain goals. And I think for both women and men, that was a sense of fulfillment. You could choose your partner in most cases. So the value of the family was, I'm going to nurture that. I'm going to grow through that. I'm going to be, this is something that I've chosen and I'm willing to do the work, even if I make a mistake. And now it's the, fast paced kind of thing. Manufacturers like, okay, I'm the good one. I'm the shit. Sorry for my language. If you don't serve me, it's okay. Bye bye. I have a new one. And on one hand, boundaries are healthy. On another, we have to always see whether we can actually grow through the experiences we have. And yes, betrayal is naturally not good, but we can, in a proper way of working post trauma of this experience, we can actually become stronger in making that bond, because relationships grow through rupture and repair. We have to remember that it doesn't grow from us always having happy times. So yeah, I think it's a very twisted concept and tricky concept, and I think it's very subjective in its nature and depending on two people involved, because betrayal will always include two people.
I'm so glad that you mentioned, rapture and repair and the world that we live in. That's very, you're worth it. So, if it's not meeting your needs, then move on. And you also said something I find very interesting is that women have been socialized to tolerate betrayal, breaking of trust, etc. And so, in your work that you do with women in particular, I agree with you that a lot of society has said boundaries are very important, and they certainly are. Where are you kind of finding that maybe in your own life or with these women, they're not kind of like giving up on a relationship while also staying curious if it's kind of reaching a threshold of pressing on a boundary?
Mm-hmm. Again, I think it's going to be very subjective and individual and how they will process that. I believe in second chances. I definitely believe in second chances, and I think it's worth giving it, because we never know when we will need one as well. We're not perfect, and things can happen to us that we won't anticipate, and we will make a mistake. We are humans, and we have to remember that again, needing the second chance is probably going to be in our life in the long run. But if the same boundaries are crossed or coming close to every single time, the person is not changing and providing different explanation, trying to justify their behavior again and again and again, the best predictor of the future behavior is past behavior. So we have to make an informed decision. And remaining curious is great. You can still give a chance to the person, but then kind of start to reshape how you view what's going on, how your role is changing within this unit. How do you want to see yourself moving forward, and understanding that this betrayal is possible again. So if this is something that you say, you know what, I'm never going to trust you again after certain things, let's say cheating can be a huge one, right? And yes, you can make it stronger afterwards, but you don't have to if this is something that you just know, I'm never going to believe this person again. And if this is how you feel, why, start to force yourself? You can make a different decision. If this is not something you can tolerate, it's okay to move on too. I think remaining curious, like you've said, is a good thing within the relationship and always within yourself, because you will be changing after that. And how you will change also predict your future as well, even within this unit. So yeah, I think boundaries are important. If they're crossed, you have to, it's a personal, you can make the decision to move on, you can make the decision to stay, but we have to also understand that you will have to accept the person with that mistake and not going over that and constantly keep to remind that person, especially if the person is doing the work, right, and trying to reestablish that trust, whether you want to give them a chance and say, okay, I'm really going to forgive that. And it's very hard, and certain things are almost impossible to forget sometimes for some people. So it's going to be deeply personal decision of what to do. And there's no right or wrong. It's just based on your values, based on your predictions for yourself for the future, based on how you view this person, based on this person's actions. Then you take all of this and you decide, do I stay? Do I go? Do I give another chance? I think again, I'm a supporter of second chances. But if it's third, fourth, fifth, well, maybe something is not changing and may not change. So we have to make that a different step forward.
I appreciate what you're saying, because it's like, when multiple occasions happen, it seems more like a pattern rather than just a one-off. And I think there's kind of a rhetoric that's been building lately that, if someone is willing to, betray you in a major way once, they are at least capable of doing it again. And you need to keep that in consideration in the choices that you make on what you want to do to stay or leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I would add to that a lot of what we're talking about is outward facing, but the thing that is universal, central to all of this, is who are you? Do you know who you are? If you don't know who you are, you can't set boundaries. There's no point on the map that you can go, okay, I'll draw a line around this because this is me and this is the boundaries I set. So identity. I look at you, and what I see is just phenomenal. Is this who you were, say, 20 years ago? That was the same identity?
Oh my God, no, absolutely not. And I think because of those moments of betrayal and hardships, not I think, I know, we grow through this experience. We never look back. I've been so happy. Vacation was great. I grew so much. Never happens, right? But if I look back and say, wow, that almost killed me. And that's how I've changed. And seeing that as, again, the steps forward. And again, you made a very important point that sometimes when we don't know who we are, and especially for women, a lot of times when we get so close to someone and they do this thing, that can be actually a very spiritual intervention in its nature, because we need to learn who we are. And then those boundaries, maybe we never had boundaries, or maybe I relied on that person for way too long. And maybe now it's the time to really reconsider where this step is taking me. But we have to, just like the other person, we have to make this lesson work for us as well and say, you know what? Maybe I didn't see this coming. Maybe I trusted way too quickly. Maybe I moved on with this person way too quickly. So maybe I have to now slow down in my decisions. Maybe I have to evaluate the traits that I want to see in the future partner, or how I need this partner to change in order for me to say, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. But you're right, if we don't know who we are, we will never be able to set those boundaries. And it's a learning process in every experience. Even if it repeats itself in the same way, there's new aspect that we begin to become more of a master of, right, within ourselves. Because naturally, every experience, I believe, leads to self-mastery in many different ways. But we sometimes, if we're stuck in that, I'm going to call it victim state, because again, I've been in that state and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a very educational step in our life, but it's not a life sentence. We have to remember that as well. And so when we come to a realization, okay, now it's time to continue to move on and discover who I am, set a standard for yourself. What is your value? Maybe your value now is focusing on yourself, because if we're honest, how can we ever predict that a person is going to be treating us well until the rest of our lives? We can't. What we can do is know how I'm going to react or act if that happens again, because we can never have 100% trust in everybody, no matter what they say. We all know love bombing and gaslighting and things of that nature. All of that is very known, familiar concepts to a lot of women. But what am I, and how will I be able to reflect and go through if it's going to happen again in my life? I can have absolute trust in myself, and I'll say, you know what? I've given that a try. That didn't work out. So if I ever have someone who will cross that boundary again, you're out. The exit is right there. I'm sorry. I'm not playing, because I have to care for myself. And I really like that when I was dealing with that, and before my marriage and how I met my ex-husband, I was very critical to people. And it doesn't matter that I've had this desire to, like, but come on, but there's something good about this person or this person, but this is not a big issue. And I was like, no, I cannot afford to make another mistake, because I know what that cost me before in the abusive relationship I've been in. So for me, it's not just trying to negotiate whether I'm going to overlook this little, minor shortcoming in that person. I cannot afford to do that, because I've done it before. But we have to learn that lesson through the hardship. And if we learn it right, then you're going to make the right decision. And we're not this, you only live once, right? Fear of missing out. No, that's not it. And I think learning that boundary, not only with others, but with yourself. Am I going to be okay with this next step? And that's, again, it's a very personal decision. We all make decisions for what's better for us, what I'm willing to tolerate, what's not. And that's the boundaries that will grow through hardships, through betrayal, through anything that we will experience with another person.
It's fascinating to me because as babies, as children, we are dependent on other people. So we have now this in, inborn reliance on other people. But at some point, life keeps throwing things at you to make you understand that what's important is you. What happened in do you at what point did you come to your own self moment that you realized, no, my marriage, my husband, my friends, they're not where I should be focusing on. The actual focus is on me. Do you remember how that came about for you?
Yeah, but I think I'm not going to be the best example for that because I've always had struggles to connect with people deeper, even though I have very warm relationship with a lot of folks. But I think on a deeply personal level, it's very hard for me to, it's work for me to open up. And when again, I was getting this, that my ex-marriage, my mother-in-law, my ex-mother-in-law, she called me a hedgehog. She said Alisa had a lot of spikes, right? She was very thorny. And so, yeah, it was a process. I left my country, Russia, at the age of 18. So already at that point, I was not focusing on, I didn't have relations with people. And now for me, and I think God has sense of humor because we have these periods of life where we have to learn to be independent, and then we have to learn to be, with people as well, because I do believe we grow through people and projects. And it's very important for us to have relations with others. Otherwise, we're going to be trapped by this hermit lifestyle, so to say, because I've been there. And unfortunately, some people get into that space and they may learn to like it because not a lot of people can be alone. But also, we have to have that. I think it's always a balance. And I really like the quote that goes, you don't want to be free from the circumstances. You want to be free within the circumstances. And I think finding that freedom, no matter where you are, it's knowing yourself and yet having that interdependence, not independence when we're highly hermit-like, and dependency when we're not able to do anything without another person, but being self-sufficient enough and yet relying on others when we're talking about, family unit, when we're talking about a couple's work. So I think it's always kind of, it's never a one or another side. I think we have to always learn to balance that and find our new version of self within this new circumstance and how we operate here. And that's a very flowy concept unless we get so rigid and we're like, no, I'm never going to do that again. It's good to explore, but make also proper chances. Chances. What would it work for me now in this new way that I live with the person that I'm becoming now, because we're always becoming, and that's a beautiful thing. And that balance is very important.
Yeah, when I think about, you saying, previous versions of myself, and when you say, when Christopher asked, is your core identity similar to where you were 20 years ago? And it was oh my God, no. And I think that's true for so many of us, right? Like there's just so many versions of ourselves that have happened since 20 years ago. And it is uplifting to me to think, if you feel stuck, if you feel trapped in a pattern, or maybe you're starting to hermit and you weren't that way before, that your ever evolving new self has what we would call a virgin mind, or a virgin opportunity to be forever curious, forever anew, forever being able to step into a different version of yourself. And so when I think about being able to trust that, to be able to trust like the ever evolving new you, or the future versions of you that you're crafting and creating, what worked, what helped you in learning self-trust, like knowing that even if something isn't going the way that you planned, or you feel stuck, that you believe that you can get yourself out of it?
Everything that we use in life, or any state we want to come to, let's say I want to be at peace, or I want to find joy, I want to have fulfillment, all of that are skills that have to be learned. So for me, my major tool is spirituality, always been, because, and again, it's a concept not a lot of people can maybe relate to, because some people are not as connected, let's say, or connected in the way I am for myself. But that served me well because I found my own practice and extreme amount of self-discipline, because that will come from what I can control. I can't control if the person will betray me, but I can control what I'm going to do every day, even if that happens. And yes, grieving is important, or dealing with emotions. I'm not saying disregarding the emotions. We need to learn from that, because those emotions have a lot of messages, or what happened and how we can work on this aspect so it doesn't repeat itself. But that self-discipline is setting goals. Am I want to continue growing? And I think having personal goals, what I want to explore, maybe it's a new language, maybe it's a new skill, maybe it's a new hobby, maybe it's something that you want to add to this new version. I want to learn to play a guitar, or I want to learn Chinese, or I want whatever that is. This is your creating sacred space for your relationship with yourself, first and foremost. And when you have that, and you have not cheating on yourself with anybody else, if you say, I'm going to have this 3 days where I'm studying this language, or I'm practicing the skill, I'm working out, and then somebody say, let's go party, and you say, I have boundaries. I say, no, I have actually something to do, but I can do it this day, because we're not trying to completely escape from people and like just very rigidly continue to work on ourselves. I think it's important to balance, but having this commitment to who you want to be, having those goals and having a plan how you will achieve it, and then staying very consistent. That's very hard to a lot of people, because we forget why we started. And then we get someone else and suddenly it's a distraction. And there is a really beautiful book. I recommend every woman to read it. It has so many nuggets, golden nuggets of information, from Tom Walker, Love's Chessboard. And he talks about how when we fall in love and what's going on, and he's saying, do you think it's fate? And it's just a chemical lab. So in our brain, really, we have a lot of neurotransmitters that begin to show up. Dopamine goes really high. On inconsistency, that's when we crave it most. When the person is not texting, when it's doing that, suddenly we feel compelled. We think there's something deeper, but in reality, we're being used by someone who's not even worthy. Serotonin goes down, and we're not able to find peace and comfort and grounding for ourselves. Oxytocin, even if we meet with that person, the touch, right, creates this right away a bonding chemical to that specific thing. And actually, it's a very important manipulation tools for a lot of people, because you see people are like, oh, hey, how are you doing? Hand on the shoulder, right? Yeah, you're being programmed right now. So on a physiological level. And vasopressin, it's the very primal territorial type of hormone. I want this to be mine. And a lot of times men come back to a woman, right, when after they break up, and they come back, hey, how you doing? Not because they want to be with you, but because they want to make sure you're still theirs, you still belong to them. And so understanding that, even if we go into that, and that requires again education and self-discipline with your own practices, we have to always have a plan for us. And it's for everybody, men and women. I think having a plan of self-development, only that way we can predict in which way we're changing. Because otherwise, experiences like relationships, other problems, we're always going to have many different problems in life, and they will continue to show up. But that self-discipline will become the skeleton, the center of my development, no matter what's going on. And if I build it brick by brick, even if it collapses a little bit, it's not going to be completely annihilated. It's still going to have certain things standing, and I will know exactly what to do. I'll say, okay, well, guess what? Tomorrow in the morning, I'm going to go to the gym. That I know. I don't know how I'm going to feel, but I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to do the work, or I'm going to connect with this person, and I'm going to connect with my family, or whatever that situation is. But having that plan and staying true to it can, again, predict the development of our identity, no matter what's going to be appearing on our path.
I think you just laid out our next step in this process, which is change. How do you change? Exactly as you say, you brick by brick by brick, and sticking to putting brick upon brick over time is change, right? I see you. I see you like a one of those workmen that with their tool belts, and they've got like every tool imaginable. For you, it's healing. You have all these tools for healing. I'm flabbergasted at what that must feel like when someone comes to you and you have a tool to help them heal from where they are. What does that feel like for you?
I see my work with others as it's a very collaborative space because, and I love my clients, and one client is saying, I'm changing because of you, and you are the, I was like, no, I'm like, you're changing because of you. And they're saying, well, you're always teaching me, look at yourself, you're always teaching me to accept compliments, and you're not accepting compliments. I'm like, whoa, let's stop right here. I'm like, okay, what if you fail? Am I the one who is responsible? They're like, well, no, we have to apply it to the same way, right? You are going to be responsible for your healing. I'm providing the space. The biggest reward for me is seeing what people taking and doing with the tools I'm giving them, and I explain how to use it, but they can also drop it. And I say, okay, I'm meeting you where you are. But I also do not want to waste time. If you're not ready for that, that's okay with me, absolutely, because we all have different paths and different time frame for change. But I'm planting seed in that point, not creating a space for transformation. That's okay too. And we can work on where they are now and explore a little more of the obstacles. But at the same time, it's still going to be their responsibility for change. And to me, to see when people grasp that and they step into their power, because the tools are universal. Yes, I'm going to give different ones for different people, obviously, but what they do with that, and then that's where the power shines through. So for me, it's a change in how they view themselves and learning that self mastery, but also it's a change in lifestyle. Because if you take this tool and you use it a few times, like, yeah, that works, and then for 3 weeks you forget about it, guess what? It's not going to work for you again when you restart it. Just like with exercises, if we're going to the gym, you're not saying, okay, I want to get to this body, and I'm going to go and I'm going to work out very hard for 6 months. And what do you do then? You drop it, go back on the couch, eat potato chips, and watch TV? No, right? It's not going to work. But so is the mind muscle. So this is a lifestyle change. And if we take our mind as a change in lifestyle, just like how we would address our body, then that will create this momentum. And those new ways, new strategies have to be maintained with consistency. And yes, you may fall out of it for a little bit, but it's not about how often you will fall out. It's how often you will bring yourself back to that and restart that and continue to practice, because all of that is a skill. The more we practice that, the more neural pathways we create and neuroplasticity, right? Just like a muscle memory. And when we're driving, I always like this analogy. When we drive, let's say you guys probably drove a lot already in your lifetime, right? So you're pretty automatic. It's like second nature of driving. When you're having an experience on the street where somebody is swifting or something is going on and you're able to get out of it very quickly, and you already scanned the back mirrors, right? Back of your mirrors, you're scanning everything so fast. It's not a conscious process. You're not sitting there, okay, I have to look in this mirror, then in this mirror, and then this, and then I have to turn. You don't have time for that. So your nature does the work for you in this critical situation. So the same thing happens with the skills we learn of grounding, of meditation, of centering, of, self-regulation of the nervous system, mind, and everything. When we're living a life, we practice that daily. Then when something big happens, it's not taking us out completely, that we're immobilized and we're in bed for 3 weeks, not able to do anything. Within a few days after that, you're like, okay, let me go back and let me recalibrate and let me use all of the things that I know how to. And then that healing process is faster and it helps us to get through this crisis situation. So it's a lifestyle change. And that lifestyle change, the more you do that, the more you know yourself, because then you have more control over your thoughts, over how you tolerate stress, right? How do you respond to it? What do you do when that happens? So that becomes the new identity. So is that practice that reflects an identity. And then it's like a beautiful circle, not a vicious one, but but a pretty one. It's pretty empowering.
I mean, so much of what you said, I know you were talking about that book, but like what you just said had so many golden nuggets in there for me. So I appreciate the analogy. And I think one thing that you said is really sticking out for me, that you said earlier that, sometimes when we're building a new pattern or a new sense of like a piece of your identity that you're working on, you're mastering a new part of yourself or a new craft, that often or sometimes we lose our way because we forgot why we started. And I think that there's something in that, like, let's say you're trying to get your body into a place where you want to feel stronger, you want to be healthy, and sometimes you lose track of why you started. Do you have any, like, can you just expand on that a little bit in perhaps how you help your clients in staying fresh with remembering why they got started?
Yeah, I would say setting an intention every morning. If that's something you want to do, and that's going to be also a practice, you're working on that one thing without overwhelming yourself. Because usually when we're like, okay, I want to be different, I want to change, I want to grow, I want to whatever we want to do with ourselves, and we right away see so many things we need to change. Well, I need to do the diet, I need to learn to speak different, I need to read this book, I need to go to the gym, I need to practice gratitude, I need to do affirmations, I need to do breathing. So much. Take one thing and implement it for a little bit of a time. Take one thing at a time. That's number one. I think it's easier to practice and bring that to self mastery if we do have that. When that becomes second nature, just like our teeth brushing, right? We're not sitting there, oh my God, can't wait to go brush my teeth. It's going to be so exciting. I love it. I feel so great. But we do have sense of, we like it, right? After that, we feel good. And it's not euphoric good, but it's, I've done it good. We want to get other practices in the same level that, and within about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we're already, if we don't do what we usually do, you'll be having a little glitches. You're like, wow, I really want to go and practice that because it makes me feel good. And if you don't do it, that feels weird. Just like if we don't brush our teeth, we go to bed. We're like, oh, I can't do it. I have to go and do it, right? Not because, again, it's euphoric, but because it's such a natural thing for us to do as a part of our routine. And if we bring that for ourselves with that intention, saying, okay, I'm going to take one thing, and every morning I will remind myself, why am I starting? What do I want to achieve? And what is going to happen if I don't? Let's say if I'm starting something, that means maybe I look at myself in the mirror, I say, wow, I really don't like what's going on here. I have to change that. Well, snap a picture, put it next to your bed. Remember that what can happen if you don't do it. Give yourself little reminders. It can be a motivational phrase. It can be, again, where you started, a picture or a feeling, because it's very easy. Feelings are very fleeting. But when we have them, it's good to journal about that to really embody what that is so that you don't get back to that state again. And then continue your work and giving yourself, set a 4 week thing. Do it as an experiment, right? I think it's good to do it for a limited time frame so that after 4 weeks, you'll say, okay, if you do it consistently, do you want to continue with that, or you want to drop it because it doesn't serve you? Because you have the right. And if it's something that, it's not really, I'm not sure I like it. Okay, great. Take another one. Do something else. But you have to give yourself enough time to practice that, and has to be, you're challenging yourself, right? And that's a very powerful thing, to challenge yourself, because if you learn to overcome the challenge you set for yourself, no other challenge would bother you or matter. You've got it. It's that self mastery that you can always pull yourself out of anything or make it work, no matter what that is. But intention, reminders, the initial phase and what's going on, and then giving yourself that time frame. Say, okay, I'm in. Let's go. And remembering, okay, if I don't do it, what's going to happen? That picture. Okay, no, I can't do that again. Let me go ahead and do that. And I've heard a really cool thing. If you wanna lose weight, eat in front of the mirror naked.
That's nasty.
Why? Come on, why not? But you will remember right away that, okay, maybe this bakery thing, maybe that pastry is not the best for me to eat right now from what I see. Okay, maybe a carrot will be better this time around, right? But now,
There's something you said along past in this conversation that I can't get out of my mind, and that's your ex mother-in-law calling you a hedgehog. And speaking to you now, like you're the calmest, warmest, gentlest person I can imagine as a hedgehog. Now, here's a trick question. Would you call yourself ever a bitch?
yeah. So, and I'm gonna actually make it even visual because I do have this item next to me. So, funny that you ask. I have PMDD. I have severe hormone fluctuation that I've had since I was a teen, and I've struggled with that because it makes me having suicidal ideations, things of that nature. Not because that's what I'm going to deal, but because it's such a disarray inside. It feels hopeless, and everything is just bad. And I've learned, again, now I'm 36, nothing is changing, but I've learned that, okay, I'm just not listening to this message. I know it's hormones, but I also stopped tolerating things. So my ex-mother-in-law, she actually would wait for me to be in that state. Like, Alice, we need to go to talk to HOA. Can you help us with that? Because she knows it's going to be a mess. I'm going to go and destroy people. I have short fuse, so I prefer to isolate rather than communicate with anybody. So I have to always, it's harder for me to mention. And I found this thing that looks exactly, I'm like, oh my God, that's my literal PMS. Like, this is how I look. This is
Wow.
this monster that comes to me. And now I'm putting that on the table if that happens. And I'm like, okay, guys, this is who you're talking to right now. Please be mindful because I'm going to eat you alive. So please don't.
Can you describe that for people who are just listening to the audio?
Yes.
Can you
So
describe that? That is wow.
it's a pink labubu with hearts in their eyes, very nice and cute and flowery with some outfit, and it has sharp teeth that will eat anything that moves, pretty much. But it's cute, kinda, but not really. So just be mindful of crossing that path. And that
I
takes me
love it.
for
I
about 2 weeks
love
of
it.
that.
I love
Yeah.
it too. I've actually seen like so many of something similar. And one side is like when she's feeling good and happy, and you can flip it to when she's like, if you try to talk to me, I am literally going to eat you alive. So just maybe just be cautious, you know?
Right, right, right. Yeah. And I think that became a kind of, now I start to reconsider that. And I've actually tolerated and overextended myself a lot. Sometimes I don't have proper boundaries when I'm in a normal space, just because what you see, right? When you see me normal, actually, right now, it's my the best week and a half. So actually, that's the time when people should talk to me. I'll be really welcoming, and then it goes into again this cycle of despair. But I've learned, I think it's another way of my nature to set those boundaries too, because this is the time when you're crossing my boundary, you're done. I'm not going to be tolerating anything, and I literally cannot. And I've tried. I can hold back, and I can. But if you continue to press, or if something continue to happen, or something really unfair, I will definitely be vocal. And yeah, I would say that's my beach type of space. That yeah, it shows up for me. But again, it's usually well deserved if that happens.
You know what? This is very important because it's important that women accept that part of themselves and they acknowledge it and they treat it with love because it is part of who you are. And just because someone else interprets it in a way that they use words to disparage you doesn't mean it's not a value of who you are. That is so important. I'm so glad that you smile about it, you laugh about it, and you acknowledge it because that is very important, I believe, for women to do with that side of themselves. And that's what these conversations and this whole process that we're going through, BITCH, that's what it's all about. It's not putting that part of yourself in the closet and trying not to let it out. It is part of you. It is part of your identity. Celebrate it.
Yeah.
Acknowledge it. Right?
Yeah. I actually have a quote that I want to read real quick because you've said about something that resonated a lot. So give me one moment, I'll find it. The same people who benefited from your kindness will often complain about your boundaries. They won't miss your goodness, they will miss the convenience of it. So
Exactly.
remembering that setting those boundaries, and sometimes kindness is taken for granted, and we have to remember kindness is privilege. Even though it can be given to us for free, it's still something that is rare, and if we abuse it, we may get retribution for that, hopefully from the same person. But I think it's really good to respect others. And again, kindness not to be taken for granted when it's given to us. Find the gratitude in having people who are offering that kindness to you and that goodness to you, and not seeing that as a convenience to use it whenever they want. And again, that balancing the protection of yourself while, again, still providing and giving that kindness to others.
Alisa, we've been looking forward to this conversation for quite a while because you bring so much depth to these conversations that on a day-to-day basis people may not think about, but it's so invaluable to know and understand and to hear from someone with your experience and what it is you do with in your profession. It is absolutely invaluable. We are so in gratitude for having you share with us what you bring to the table. Thank you so much. Now, if someone wants to work with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so social media, Alisa_art or Psychology Today. My profile is there. My website is www.sense.life. If they want to,
SENSE?
Yeah, like since my childhood, since that life.
Oh, since, okay.
Very
Fabulous.
cool. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure to see you again. And every time we do, we go deeper. So to hear your thoughts on the BITCH, it's been a joy.
Thank you. It's such an honor. No, I love you guys. You're amazing, and it's always an amazing space. You're the best with providing, this beautiful stage to share. So thank you. It's an honor.
Thank you so much. And you have been listening to
The Virgin
The Beauty.
and the Bitch, BITCH, in her year 2026.
Find us, like us, share us, bring yourself on back.